am Rebecca Davis, a weird, scary, and interesting. And happy Halloween, since it's Halloween. Now, today, we're going to be talking about scary things from the Victorian era. It's Halloween. Since we talked about in May of the Victorian era, we're going to take a look at how the Halloween was in the Victorian era. And if you're wondering, we have had how many trick-or-treaters we've had. We've had 42 so far. Me and Anita are thinking that was more than last year. Scary things from the Victorian era. Okay, this is a little bit what the scary things from the Victorian era. The Halloween, how they celebrated Halloween back when my 12-time cousin, Queen Victoria, ruled. Victorian era Halloween was a time for social parties with divination games, costumes, festive decorations involving from a holiday with more somber and superstitious roots. So, with the superstitious roots, Halloween actually has its roots right into the Celtic culture. Because the Druids, like an old religion called the Druids, they believed that Halloween is the time when the window of the living and the dead would open. Okay, that's why it's about the somber the superstitious roots. Okay. Parties became a fashionable way for young people to socialize and look for romance, often including activities like bobbing for apples. Who hasn't done that? Telling fortunes in a mirror. More or less, we're going to learn a little bit about that you stare in a mirror and you figure out who your future, if you're going to marry in the future or there's death or and baked apples is one of the things that they did. Who hasn't had a baked apple? Have you, P? Okay. But a little bit. The but is we're gonna get into a scary part. There's like the party whooping it up, but since we're in the topic of scary, but Victorian, since it's a but, Halloween was scary and Victorian era due to a mix of beliefs in supernatural forces. As we learned back in the scary things of the Victorian era, that's the time that they really got into seances, Ouija boards, believing in the macabre, where that this is not the only life, this is not it. That back then they believed that there's more to this than this plainly realm that we live on eternally, that we will eventually be all ghosts. But then all ghosts are not bad. Some are nice, like Casper the Friendly Ghost. Okay, and a culture fascinated with death and the macabre. So yeah, there is more into the whole afterlife. That there's something more than this plainly realm. That after we die, we're not worm food. That our soul continues on. I wonder if they believed in reincarnation back in the Victorian era. I don't know. Okay, anyways. And popularity of frightening entertainment like ghost stories. Like kind of like sitting around a campfire and talking about the old town hall being haunted by a nightly dance of waltzes and rumbas and salsas and different parties whooping it up and laughter, and once you walk in, and when you go to search for the party, the room is silent. Okay. And a gothic literature, kind of like in the you remember, if you remember watching or if you watched from last season about this time when I did the episode on the Universal Monsters. About this time we would see gothic literatures coming out like Dracula and Frankenstein. And also around that, in that time period, would be some gothic literature from one of my favorite authors, Edgar Allan Poe, would have released like The Raven and so much more. Somebody coming to the door? Oh. So, that. Okay. The era's unique cultural climate. So it was a lot more different than what is today. Characteristic by treason between industrial progress, legacy, superstitions. So you see a lot of superstitions, like if if a black cat crosses your path, it's bad luck. Excuse me. I must be having a lot of bad luck because Snowball's a black cat. I don't believe in superstitions. maybe a lot. Maybe there's some people out there that do believe in that. Or the other superstition is to carry a four-leaf clover or a rabbit's foot, or have if you break a mirror is 7 years bad luck. Now, if you break several mirrors, you had lots of bad luck, because if you break 2, it's like 14 years. You break 10, you need to start doing the math, and you need to stop being a klutz. Huh. Okay, anyways. And fostered astronomists where both eerie traditions and elaborate spooky parties coexist. Okay, there you go. I had to look up that part up earlier because obviously I wasn't really completely done with the script. Aw. Only takes 2 minutes. Okay, let's see let's see why Halloween was scary in the Victorian era. You think of it, Halloween is supposed to be scary. If you see my Halloween decorations, it looks scary. At least a little kid that we babysit says that right in here. Anyways, Halloween is supposed to be scary. Any era. Okay. On our first one, scary thing from the Victorian era is creepy decorations and jump scares. You watching to see if there's any more little ones? Anyways, creepy decorations in the Victorian era were because they were rooted in beliefs in spirits. You utilize spooky imagery and level rage the inherited creepiness of the Victorian era, architect and decor. The practice of using costumes and decorations to ward off spirits dates back to ancient Celtic festival of Samhain, and this was combined with the Victorian culture fascination with death and ghosts and supernaturalism. I think the whole death thing you see in the Victorian, like the late Victorian era, we're getting into everybody wearing black because after Prince Albert, the consort of Queen Victoria, more or less, Albert had died, and as we learned in the Scary Things from the Victorian era episode all the way back in May. If anybody hasn't seen that, you should check it out. She more or less made everybody in her country and the Commonwealth dive deep into mourning. Right up to the time she died, and then I guess her son Edward let them start wearing more than black. Black is slimming. I can see why she picked the color. But since they during that mourning period, they just dived got into the macabre, the death, and that to see if there's more than what on this plane. This created an astronomic of genius fear that was amplified by the dark and ornate and often poorly lit interiors of Victorian homes. Because back then there was most homes didn't have lighting like we have today. There were more like have you ever seen like a good example for poorly lighting would be The Christmas Carol by Charles Dickens. Right there shows that it was mostly gaslight than electricity, and gaslight didn't light the whole room up. And they just lit one room at a time instead of all the house. Okay, anyways, which were often filled with heavy furniture. It'd be more heavier than what me and Anita have. You imagine almost like probably bricks or something. And dark draperies, because we're getting into the period of mourning. And the main color is black. And bricked jump scares in Victorian era were scary due to a combination of cultural antics, technology limited, and hold on, I have to pronounce this word. Psychology? Yeah, I think that's the word. Factors, thank you, Anita, that made the supernatural feel more real, imminent. These include a fascination with the supernaturalism and a cause of faith, and the brutalization of horror, because as I say, this is the era where the universal monsters coming from. We're seeing a lot of the gothic macabre coming from, because as a threat from within rather than from outside. And plus, on top of it, this is the era we see Jack the Ripper. So that's probably what they were talking about, a threat from outside, a horror threat from outside. Because Jack the Ripper in this late period of the Victorian era is when Jack the Ripper's killing spree starts. When he wiped 5 women's lives out and terrorized poor Whitechapel. Okay. And poorly built homes with poor ventilation, gas, lighting that would cause hallucinations, and theatrical installations all added to line between manager Dane and supernatural blurry. So the with them using gas lights back then, we know now that the effects on gas on people when there's gas is we have carbon monoxide poisoning attached to it. So the hallucination back then was probably caused because of the gas, and the gas was giving out carbon dioxide. But back in the Victorian era, there was no such thing as carbon monoxide detectors. And they probably didn't know anything of carbon dioxide poisoning back then. Okay, we'll move on. Next one, move on from creepy decorations and jump scares to ghost stories, in which that's at number 2. Victorian era ghost story. Halloween ghost stories often feature terrifying real life themes such as gruesome fear of body snatchers, which that happened a lot back then, as we learned in Scary Things from the Victorian Era episode back in May. There was a lot of grave robbing. That's how, if you know about the tale of Frankenstein's monster and Frankenstein's bride, when they have a kid who is the son of Frankenstein, they were all made up from grave robbing, because they were pieces of dead body that were stitched together. Okay. And hauntings and ghostly figures proclaiming a blending of supernatural and the macabre. Like, if you want to know a ghost story from that time, it's a real ghost story. I heard on one of the YouTube channels, I forget which one, but they were talking about the fact that Queen Victoria herself seen her own dead husband's ghost, Albert. So obviously, as in life and in death, Prince Albert stayed by his beloved wife's side. I wonder if John Brown did the same thing once he died. Because there was a rumor that they had a little fling. Anyways, we'll move on. Unlike modern horror, Victorian tales often had more psychological, lingered dread and exploring the possibility of a malignant otherworldness, sometimes using them to both frightening and debunk supernatural beliefs. If any of you are wondering why I'm doing this, my right arm is sore because I have metal in here, and once in a while this arm aches and pains. A lot of people that probably go through that would understand. Thought to explain. You never know. People would wonder. Okay. So yeah, as we know, a lot of people in the Victorian era, it was a big thing back then for supernatural. I think that's why religion was a big popular thing back then, because religion is somewhat connected to the supernatural, with the resurrection of Jesus. And so yeah, if you look it up, you'd know there's a lot of that ghost stories and that, and there's seances and that. Okay, a good one fact is, today, I'll give you a fact. For today is a death anniversary of Harry Houdini. Okay. Harry Houdini died today after, is his death on today, I'll look it up again. On today in 1926, this is way after the Victorian era, Harry Houdini died after somebody, as I heard once, it was after some guy sucker punched him in the stomach. And the sucker punch caused his appendix to erupt. So, since, Harry Houdini is famous for being an escape artist. And one of his famous one of his famous tricks is to be submerged in water and be shackled up, and that's what he was doing on the day he died. He was trying to escape from the shackles from underwater, but he didn't, because since the appendix was made erupted from the sucker punch, he was going through pain and that, and and it made it a lot more harder to do his escape act underwater. So you can think that technically, in a way, not only died from the uncared appendix that was erupted because some guy thought to be a tough guy and take on Harry Houdini and sucker punch him. Technically, in a way, Harry Houdini drowned because he was going through the appendix issue, and after he died, like, Harry Houdini was a skeptic on the paranormal. He thought it was a big baloney. That once he died, that's it. So his wife, which was his widow, till she did seances every Halloween up to the day she died. I think before that she might have quit doing seances. I think I hear that there is somebody in Hollywood that keeps on doing it, because the idea of the seances was she was trying to connect with her husband, because he told her, if I could, I'll give you a sign. If I could come back from the dead, I'll give you a sign. But I'm not sure if he did, or maybe as her advanced age, she might have not noticed that he was giving her a sign and she just missed it. What? Neela just looks puzzled. Oh, okay. Anyways, I thought to tell you that the little fact that today's Harry Houdini's death anniversary. Anyways. Okay. So yeah, in the Victorian era, they believed a lot about the supernatural. Even another one of my favorite authors, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, the author of Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes. He was a big believer in the supernatural. I believe that there's ghosts, that there's possibility that there's more than this, that we could come back and visit our loved ones. But then, you know what, there's some ghosts that move on because their business.
I have to pee.
Oh.
I'm going to the young.
Okay.
I don't know what
Some ghosts have unfinished business. That's why they stick around. Some have their business, what they are meant to do on this plane realm, is finished, so they pass on, are able to pass on. That's probably what a lot of them in that time frame did. I think I heard heard Queen Victoria was into a lot of seances, trying to get it to connect with Albert. Okay, let's move on from ghost stories to number 3, which is Dave and Nation games. Okay, playing Nation games was scary in the Victorian era because they trapped into a deep-seated fascination with the supernatural. There again, where you have something else that's connected to the paranormal. And fear of the unknown. So yeah, a lot of people were big believers in the supernatural, and they had fear of the unknown. And with games like looking into the mirror for a future spouse, or practicing death from the future, and Anita's getting into the Halloween candy.
What
Stashy? The games played on Halloween, which was associated with the end of the harvest. That's mainly what Halloween, my grandma told me when she was alive. That's mainly what Halloween is, like a celebration for the end of the harvest. At least it's more, we're getting more modern definition of what Halloween is. Okay, anyways, which was associated with the end of the harvest and the thinning of the veil between the worlds. As I said early in this video, the Celtics, like me and some people that have Celtic roots, have ancestors that probably believed in the fact that when this time of year, Halloween, there was a thinning of the veil between the mortal realm and the great beyond. And that's the time when they believe that a lot of the ghosts, like your dead relatives, are coming through. Yeah, Grandma's coming. Okay, I think I just freaked my roommate out for saying that. It's okay, Anita, don't see Granny. Hold on, I have to see what she's talking about. I'll be back. Okay, I'm back. We figured it out. It's a headlight. It's no big demon living across the street. Okay. Anyways, back to the whole Davian games and the veil between the worlds of our world and the great beyond. That's what the thinning of the veil is rooted in Celtic lore. That they believe that this is the time of year when the dead loved ones are coming over. There's a practice that they would try in the Celts uh, to please the dead. Sometime we were. I think we should talk about the deep dive into the the history of Halloween. You think about a lot of holidays are pagan holidays, like Halloween, Christmas. I think Easter might be, but then and then eventually down in history, the Catholic Church got their hands on it and turned it into to make it more religion, and that's why November 1st is All Saints Day, because we have Halloween with there's a pagan actual name for it, and there's All Saints Day, because All Saints Day is more religious. All right, better double check. Yeah, I'm right. Which is also known, I'm looking at the overview here, it says, also, All Saints Day is also known as All Hallows Day, is the feast of All Saints, and that's more religious twist to Halloween. Okay. So yeah. So the veil between the worlds is they thinning because they believe that the dead would come over during Halloween. If you think of it, even in Mexico, they have their own kind of Halloween. It's called the Day of the Dead. It's more or less to celebrate the ones that passed on. And when that happens, do you want to celebrate our dead loved ones? Okay, and we'll get back to this. And often between cautionary tales are were seen as risk reasons, even fatal consequences. Oh, yeah. You think about actually Halloween at one time, if you look at it was more for the adults and the children. Because trick-or-treating is more of North Americanized style of Halloween. There's a history on YouTube on somebody's channel. If you look it up, it'll explain that how he got to Halloween. Yeah, maybe sometime I should maybe do an evolution of Halloween. Like the last two evolution videos I did, but they were more royal. The last two evolutions. But why not? I could do evolution of Halloween. So we can. see from the pagan roots to what it is today, with little kids going going door to door and saying trick or treat. Okay, let's move on from Divination Games to number 4, which is matchmaking with a scary twist. It's never good if you have a matchmaker and then she puts a scary twist into it. You're almost worried that you're gonna end up marrying somebody that has a scary, sketchy past. Okay, anyway, so let's get into why matchmaking has a scary twist. Almost reminds me of that song, Matchmaker, Matchmaker, give me a match, find me a find, catch me a catch. That song's from Fiddler on the Roof. If anybody's seen that movie, you'll understand that song. Okay. Matchmaking on Halloween was scary in the Victorian era because the game's designed to reveal a future spouse. If I did that, hopefully he's good looking. Wouldn't hurt if he had enough money. Anyways. Enough about me. Future spouse could also show death instead. Okay, that's not good if it shows that you're gonna be marrying somebody like Ted Bundy. Okay. And creating a frightening, hopefully I get this word right, position of romance. Ooh. And mortality. This particular game's looking into the mirror with an apple to see your future love. Anita, you want to try this? And could sometimes show a skeleton. Okay, that's not good. It was showing a skeleton. A terrifying omen of lonely future or death. This added a layer of supernatural risk to what was otherwise a romantic holiday centered on finding love. Now, you think of romantic holiday. What holiday do you think? Valentine's. We learned from my episode that Valentine's is not so romantic. And definitely it's confirming in this episode. It's not so romantic. It's terrifying. Okay. The scary twist in the Victorian matchmaking was scary due to juxtaposition of light-hearted matchmaking rituals with the era's unique fascination with the supernatural and gothic horror. There's probably almost everybody's had in that time probably had Dracula or the book on Dracula or Frankenstein or the Raven in their house. Games like Magic Mirror are playing Kale stakes were intended to predict a future spouse, but the entirely belief in spirits and macabre added a generally spooky undertone, making the future marriage prospects seem both tantalizing romantic and obviously unknown. Yeah. I never knew Halloween was supposed to be romantic. Okay, I'm back. And after the door, we got some more trick-or-treaters. And we're up to 46 trick-or-treaters.
It's like 9:03.
And it's 9:03.
I don't know what time
I don't know, they don't ring the bell anymore. Anyways, we were talking about matchmaking with scary twists before I had to answer the door and give 4 more candies to 4 more trick-or-treaters, and Stash is sitting on the paper that we're using. Okay, now let's move on from matchmaking with scary twists. I never thought that Halloween would be romantic. Anita, would you think Halloween would be romantic? How much romance can you get with a guy that dresses up as Freddy Krueger? Which the guy that plays Freddy Krueger just got a star today on the Walk of Fame. Perfect time to pick to get a star on the Walk of Fame, and when you are a guy that played horror character. Listen, Robert Englund is the same guy that played one of the same guys that played the Phantom of the Opera. Okay. Yeah, let's move on from matchmaking with scary twists to number 5, which is vandalism and violence. Yeah. Vandalism occurred on Halloween as a form of escalating mischief, moving from harmless pranks to destructive acts by the 19th century and the 20th century, with acts like tipping outhouses, moving gates, soaping windows, and becoming common. This is a lot more tamer than some of the stuff that that's a lot more different than what was when me and Anita went to school. Like this part what we're learning is more or less where we get the trick part of trick or treat, where they are doing tricks. Like when me and Anita went to school, the trick then was toilet papering the trees. Well, I think there was soap back in the late in the 90s, soaping windows, but mainly there was eggs getting thrown at somebody's house. But then there's more destructive, like property damage, kind of like the outhouse thing, but more or less moving somebody's Christmas decoration and destroying it. Kind of like, especially if it's a bag of is a pumpkin that is a bag that's a pumpkin, and you fill with leaves and you throw it somewhere else. Like property damage. I think one year when we were kids, I think I remember somebody moved those metal things that were supposed to be used for the what's it called in the ditch, culverts. Like moved it across the street. That's dangerous when you're trying to drive. Yeah. You don't hear trick or treating anymore. You don't hear of the trick anymore, do you? So yeah, that's almost tame than some things I've heard of. Okay. Okay, became common in the Victorian era. Halloween was scary due to a public obsession with death. Obstacle and article and supernatural stem from deep-seated fears of evil spirits and supernatural that were exacerbated by the strict mourning rituals and general factions with the macabre, because we're getting a late Victorian era where we're now past the point where Prince Albert has died, so we're into the mourning period and there's strict rules, like not wearing bright yellow because we're all black. Yeah, and wearing black colors. Okay, the violence part of this is the violence on Halloween was a historical trend in the late 19th century and early 20th century, involving from mix of pranks and vandalism fueled by immigration and social changes. It was scary in the Victorian era, not because of gore, but due to psychological dread, fear of the supernatural in the era's strict lack of widespread law enforcement, which made acts of vandalism assault, and property destruction feel more maintaining and less controlled. Yeah. So more or less it was almost like the Wild West then. Wait for a bit. Just make sure, you never know. Okay. If the trick-or-treater comes to the door, it's your turn. Okay, scandal, and we'll move on from violence and vandalism to number 6, which is scandal and crime. Okay, while major scandals weren't the norm, but Victorian Halloween was considered to be scary, though its lineage in superstitions, spooky parties, and sometimes violent pranks that blur the line between celebration, popular nuisance pranks. Pranks like tying up doorknobs, stringing ropes across the sidewalk to trip people, damaging property were common, leading to calls from community leaders to remove the frightening aspects and focus on more neighborly festivities. Hey, Zoe. Scary pottery parties were common, with dimly lit rooms, jump scares like sawdust-filled gloves, and games designed to predict the future. And there again, we're something else that's predicting the future. Okay. The crime that happened in the Victorian era on Halloween was dangerous pranks escalating to dangerous levels. Only one story from this time describes a group of boys who placed a stuffed figure across the railroad tracks as a Halloween prank. It was kind of like, in those old silence films that they have somebody placed across the tracks, like tied up, kind of like that. Causing the train to stop just in time to avoid collision, because they were probably thinking, oh my god, there's somebody on the track, we're gonna run their butt down. And meanwhile, when they stopped and they go to find out that it's not real, they're probably more upset that, and probably believe that it wasn't an actual person, but probably upset that could have caused the train to probably derail. Because remember, if you're gonna do pranks, do it pranks where you're not gonna hurt somebody. Or hurt your pocketbook when somebody sues you for pranking them dangerously. Okay. Well, let's move on from scandal and crime. Number 7, death and grief. the Victorian era, death was intrinsically linked to Halloween through the death of the spirits of the dead returning on that night, blurring the lines between the living and the dead. The supernatural here was central part of the holiday, which was less about candy. So as they say, back then it was more. At one time, it was more for the adults and the kids. Anyways, and more about spooky games and divination and spiritualism. The omnipresent specter of death, and also led to fears of premature burial, because it was common back then to, by accident, get buried alive. You know, for my wrestling viewers, you know, like the wrestling match, buried alive, kind of like that. Except there's not two guys battling it out in a graveyard. It's a little different. It's just some medical problems back then when you're like, see, you accidentally got, your medical problem made you slip into a coma. They might have accidentally, the doctor might have accidentally pronounced you as dead. And then your family or community would give you a funeral and bury you. And next you know, you heal from whatever bouts of illness you're ailing from, and you wake up in a pine box. Sorry for my claustrophobic viewers. But that's a reality back then. In most cases, no one even known. And when they went to there's a ghost story of a woman's dead daughter had came to her and said, "Mom, I'm not dead, I'm alive." And the dead woman kept on coming to her mom over and over again in her dreams, till eventually the mom believed her and went and exhumed her daughter, and they seen claw marks on the casket when they opened it. By then she would have died of suffocation, because really they don't put put breathing holes in your casket. That's probably why the invention of what we're gonna talk about right now, the creation of safety coffins, which safety coffins is kind of like connected to back then in some graves they would some older graves, because they eventually found out that Sally Green had died of suffocation, and because the doctor she had back in the Victorian era had thought that she died, but instead she was like in a coma. But they probably didn't know what comas were back then. And then she woke up in the coffin and figured out, oh my god, I'm alive. And she's trying to scratch her way out of the coffin because she can't push the lid up because you have a amount of dirt on top of the lid of the coffin. Are you understanding, P? Okay. So, with the amount of dirt on top of Sally's coffin, casket. Yeah, casket. Coffin, casket, whatever. She can't push the lid up, so with the amount of dirt on there and she can't push the lid up, she ends up having to suffocate. Now, I don't know if there's anybody in a case where somebody questions, oh, maybe we should double check here. Now, the safety coffins, they had, I seen a video that they used to have a window in the coffin, so if, say, Sally was, back to Sally, she was buried alive. So if she had the coffin where they had the window, and they dug her up and they seen that she was alive, because they could see right through the window. It's like, oh my god, we buried Sally alive. Then they could dig her up and probably take her to a hospital and maybe sue the doctor. And also, I'm not sure if it was in the Edwardian era when the last Edwardian era, the Edwardian era before that, Victoria's son when he ruled, that some graves had attached a bell to the casket, so if the supposed deceased was alive, then like Sally, she would just have to do this ding ding ding, and I hope somebody would be in the grave to hear the ding ding ding. And if somebody heard that, they could probably go and get help. Because like the safety coffins were to prevent the burying alive of humans, because there was a mispractice of pronouncing somebody deceased when they weren't deceased, that they probably just slipped into a coma, or there was some medical illness that had made it look like a coma, but maybe not a coma. I'm thinking it was more a coma. It was mispronounced as death. When you think of it, the medical science has evolved over the years, but in the Victorian era, it was a different world. We learned in the scary things from the Victorian era, we learned about how surgeries were back then. And I explained that if I was back then and I needed a surgery, I would say no. I'll stick with sling for the rest of my life. If I had a choice, buried alive or the surgery, I would take none. What would you do, Anita? Victorian surgery or Victorian premature burial? Okay. You're helpful. Yeah. So yeah, that's why the safety coffins were invented to prevent the premature deaths, because the premature burials, because that way they could see that somebody's still alive and was accidentally pronounced dead when they weren't. Okay. Grief was present on Halloween and Victorian era, as a holiday served as a way to cope with death and uncertainty, especially during the winter, and was a time for both and eerie romantic traditions. The scary aspects included fascinations with the supernatural, ghost stories, macabre folklore, alongside more light-hearted pranks, romantic traditions, scary aspects including fascination with the supernatural, ghost, macabre, folk. Okay. Yeah. Scratch that. Somehow good. Okay, what I just said, alongside more light-hearted pranks and romantic deviation games, like we learned. Okay. So now we'll move on from death and grief to number 8, which is supernaturalism. So we're going to get into what this era believed in, because they were big into the supernatural, because like the whole kingdom of the United Kingdom and their Commonwealth, and its Commonwealth, were grieving over Prince Albert. Okay. And unfortunately, they were grieving right up till Victoria's death. So, and this time they got into the supernatural. So let's see why. Yeah. Supernaturalism was a part of Halloween in this time. In the Victorian era, supernaturalism was incorporated into Halloween through popular activities like seances. You know, the thing that you sit around a table and hold hands with people in a dark room and hope that you can connect with Marilyn Monroe. Well, at this time it'd be Marilyn Monroe's many times great grandmother. And ghost stories, like we were talking about, and divination games, such as looking into the mirror for the future spouse's image. Say if I did that, he better be damn good looking. And fear surrounding this era's supernaturalism came from the belief that on Halloween, spirits of the dead could cross over, like we were talking about, posing a threat to the living. Yeah, because they believe that the spirits came over and they would threaten the living. How harmful is Grandma? I'm getting a nasty look from my roommate. Posing a threat to the living, who try to protect themselves with rituals, masks, and costumes to ward off the dead. Yeah. So the more or less the rituals is more or less the almost like they say to appease the gods, but the rituals were to appease the dead. Mass was to more or less to disguise your face. Like if you wore like a Frankenstein mask, I don't think Grandma would recognize you. And in costumes, well, you know, you got a mask, you might as well wear your costume to go along with it. So yeah. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I thought it'd be neat. Why don't we see what Halloween was like in the Victorian era? Maybe next season around this time we might look at what Halloween was like in the Georgian era, because next season, season 3, we're going to be talking about the Georgian era. And that's going to be quite a parter, because there's quite a few kings that came from that, like 4 kings. That came from that. Like George 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, actually 5. They say William the 4th was part of the Georgian era. Oh hell, he wasn't a George. He wasn't. I know he was Hanover, but he wasn't part of the Georgian. His name wasn't George. His name was William. So hopefully you enjoyed this I'd say Halloween edition of weird, scary, and interesting. A little different than last year when we talked about the Universal monsters and we learned about Dracula, the Wolfman, and the Wolf Woman, and lots of mummies, and Dracula's women. We found out Dracula was a bigamist. And Frankenstein and the visible the Invisible Man and the Visible Woman. It's a little different. We're learning about a particular decade, a particular era, and what this holiday, Halloween, was like back when my 12th time cousin, Queen Victoria, ruled. So, if you like this and enjoyed this little edition, a Halloween edition of Weird, Scary, and Interesting, and learn the little, almost like terrifying scary facts of the Victorian's Halloween, then you know what to do. You know the drill. It's like and subscribe, and don't forget to comment. And I'm thinking hopefully next week, if I have it done, I might do their urban legends, another thing of urban legends, because there's still quite a bit of urban legends. I know I was planning on doing it for this month, but a lot of things happen in my family that made me busy. So that's why some of the stuff that was supposed to be for this month might end up moving into November. And if not, something might just get shown up in season 3 of this channel. So for now, and I hope you enjoyed Halloween, had a good Halloween. Hopefully, a lot of youngsters that might be watching my channel got a lot of candy and were safe trick-or-treating this year. So for now, till next week, I will say, well, actually, first, before I say goodbye, don't forget to check out my channel, my joint channel with Anita. Don't forget to check out, to check out the rest of the videos on this channel. And if you want to know what my joint channel with Anita is, it's Anita and Becky. So don't forget to check that out. And don't forget to check Anita's channel, Just Anita. She needs more love than she can stand over there. Okay, for now, till next week, and hopefully I have the urban legends of 2025 ready to go. For next week, I will say goodbye. Goodbye.